She thinks she ruined her life. This lady's name is Aish Banaish, and it got around 28,000 views in about the 2 months this video has been up for. I'm also watching these blind, so I guess we're going to find out together. Let's investigate.
Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Aish Banaish, and in this video I'm just going to be letting you know how I ruin my life and showing you how you can ruin yours in half the time. So a good way to start
I love British accents. I just needed to say that.
this video is probably to let you know where I'm at. I'm currently a self-employed, aka not really doing anything psychology graduate with a dead mum, a paper I can't publish, and a bad...
Oh, psychology majors? Nope. Yeah, they're cooked. Psychology, you can't really do much with psychology unless you get a master's. You have to get a master's. Just a bachelor's in psychology, you're not going to get much. You need a master's minimum, ideally a PhD, because you want to be able to open up your own practice.
Case of brain rot. I'm about to turn 30 with no clue where I'm going in life, only an inkling of where I want to go, and a ton of anxiety stopping me even set off. How did I get here? I'm not really sure if I can explain it, but basically like 5 years ago I had a...
So not even a minute into the video, and I think I've already figured out some of the symptoms. She's very anxious, which might be causing her to feel like she's ruined her life. Now let's see how this anxiety spirals into failure.
Successful body piercing business with an online store which somehow didn't get screwed up by the pandemic.
Online, okay.
And so with all the impulse and not a whole lot of thinking, I decided to close the business that I'd spent the last 5 years before that building to focus on doing a psychology degree, which I decided to do while off my face and hadn't really thought through a lot. And while I don't regret it, I don't think putting my life in limbo for the last 3 years really helped. I started that degree while I was in a period of autistic burnout.
She's pretty nervous. She's talking very quickly and she blinks a lot. Those are two signs of nervousness.
And so I didn't really...
Here's one thing. If you talk too quickly, then it makes you seem very anxious and uncertain. But if you talk slowly, then it makes you sound more confident. Now, obviously, you don't want to talk too slow to where you lose the viewer's attention. But when you talk too quickly, it can also show weakness.
Have much for life outside of that degree. I didn't really think about what I'd do after it ended. Not because now I have a degree, because I was never going to university to change my career. I was just doing that in a completely unrelated way because I hate myself. And so all of this, like the closing my business, the being burnt out, the being surrounded by young people...
So we call that a masochist. When you hate yourself like that, that makes you a masochist.
who know what they want to do in life, and probably some other stuff as well, has all come together to make me overthink absolutely fucking everything, to the point that I've become a shell of myself that's ruled by fear and doesn't do anything. And at the same time as all this is going on, my family...
And that's how she's ruining her life. She's overthinking. Overthinking can lead to ruining your life. Analysis paralysis.
is basically disintegrating before my eyes, and my relationship with my mum got worse, and that would be like totally fixable and not life ruining, except in my 3rd year she killed herself, and now I'm left looking back on that relationship.
Wait, she offed herself?
And all the things I did that I can never take back, while having an existential crisis about what the fuck I'm doing with my life, which is basically my full-time job now since I graduated, and realised that all that you should publish this feedback was bullshit because no one wants to publish my paper, which leaves me not knowing what to do with my life because I've spent the last few months lying to myself, telling myself that a PhD might fulfill me, and it's not even that it doesn't interest me, I just know deep down that it's too caged in. And so that leaves me regretting closing my business, but also knowing that I'm not the same person I was then, and even if some of my reasons for closing were really fucking stupid in hindsight, some of them are really fucking valid. And one of those things is literally that I felt too caged in and unable to explore other things, which is why I secretly know that I want to focus on creating, but I've just been too afraid to actually pursue that because I've been a shell of myself, or who I was, which I sit and tell myself is from all the burnout and the changes and all the other stuff I just told you, but I know deep down is from trauma I tell myself I've dealt with. And to an extent that's true, but only in the sense that I've cut the poison ivy from the hold it had around my brain, not in the sense I've actually addressed the root of it so that it doesn't keep growing when I don't tend to it. But my fear of shame and embarrassment stops me admitting any of this, even to myself, because that feels weak and vulnerable, and the thing that traumatized me in the first place made me really not like feeling vulnerable. And when I was...
You know what's ironic about this whole thing? She studied psychology, and she's analyzing herself as if she's a psychologist. She's like her own patient right now.
Making progress on actually dealing with this shit, a new trauma dropped, and it's like the progress bar just went back to 0. And I didn't have the energy to keep uprooting poisonous seeds that had been planted in my head because I was just focused on trying not to drown in my grief. And somehow I've survived all this and even got halfway to sober, except now I indulge in biscuits and takeout, which means I'm super unhappy with my body as well as my career and my relationships, and I'm not even...
Oh yeah, comfort foods, that's also like, could be a deadly addiction. Because if you have too much biscuits, too much fast food, well, your body's going to feel like crap and you're not going to feel as good. You're not going to make as good decisions because that shit messes with your brain. And not only that, but when you put on size, people are going to see that and you're basically silently telling people that you don't have discipline and that you don't take care of yourself.
high enough to ignore any of it. And on top of all that, I'm about to turn 30, which can be an existential crisis in itself, but I do take some pride in the fact I was already having one. But the idea of turning 30 and entering a new decade of my life is definitely making it feel bigger and more important. Because I never thought I'd make it to 30, so I'm even more like, what the fuck do I do now? And so here
She looks young for 30s.
I am, not really doing anything, but trying to figure out what I want to do and how to deal with all the stuff I haven't dealt with and how to stop being a shell of myself. And I realised that I just need to get over my fear of shame and embarrassment and start doing something. But even though I know that and I've known that for a long time, it's really hard to actually do. I know that other people probably deal with this shit, and from a content perspective, there are people who would never feel comfortable to put themselves out there and make content or make YouTube videos. But I think the fact that I did and now I don't is what gets me. I saw the Chronic Iconic, aka Jess, doing a pushback on Instagram to try and get herself back, and it made me realise that it's not just me and that I can at least try and do something about it. She said something like maybe she'll never get back to her old self, but she can at least try and sculpt her current state into something she likes, or something like that. And she's right. So much has changed over the last 5 years, and I've changed so much, and not all for the worse, and I can either work with that.
Well, this was uploaded in 2025, right? 5 years ago was 2020. I feel like a lot of people changed in 2020. I feel like as soon as that pandemic hit, it just changed a lot of people for the rest of their lives, and it changed their outlook on life, maybe even their attitude. Feel like the world has gotten quite spicy ever since that pandemic. So I don't think she's alone.
Or I can keep romanticizing a past that I don't even want while complaining about where I'm at. And
Speaking of romanticizing the past, I'm now romanticizing 2019, the pre pandemic times. That's where my mind's at.
And as much as I love complaining, it's getting kind of boring. I might not know what I want to do or what I want to create, but I'll never know if I don't make anything. I miss writing, and when I was writing about my mum, I felt closer to my old self. But I don't want to just write about my grief, and I don't want to just make videos on piercings. But I think feeling that I needed to stick to that niche was a big part of why I stopped making videos. And the fear, obviously. Because if a piercing video did shit, it was just like, that's fine, that's safe, it's a video on piercings. But making video content and being video content are like two different things.
Yeah, but you probably have low expectations on that because I don't imagine there's a huge niche for piercings. So you kind of expect the videos not to perform well. So it's kind of like a self fulfilling prophecy. You don't really want to do a niche because you feel like if it doesn't get a lot of views, it's because of the niche. Like, do stuff that's a little more saturated. Don't be afraid to do stuff that's a little more saturated, right? Those things can go viral too. Like, yeah, well, most of them not do well in the beginning. Sure, whatever, right? But when you fail on those videos, hopefully you have a couple of takeaways from failing on those videos, but just don't pick a niche for the sake of being like, "Oh, well, I didn't get a lot of views, so it's clearly because of the niche." No, that's a little bit of BS. Don't think like that. I can see how that can contribute to the ruining of your life, Miss Aish.
You know? And if a personal video does shit, it kind of hurts. I think we sit and tell ourselves that we don't care what other people think and you shouldn't care what other people think, but I think you do, at least to some extent. And even beyond that.
I mean, yeah, she's right. She's right in that regards. A lot of the saying "don't care about what other people think" is a whole load of crap, right? You have to care what other people are thinking about because it's PR, right? It's a PR thing, especially if you're trying to make it on social media. You do want the opinions of other people because those other people is what's going to boost your engagement. Or actually, even just in life in general, whether it's your job or doing sales or whatever, right? Like even your job, right? You need to care about what other people are thinking about you. That's like one of the number one things in sales is you need to be able to read the room and see how people perceive you, and then you act accordingly. So when people say stuff like never care about what other people think about you, that's just an overused line, and they're probably not doing much with their life anyways. You absolutely should care about what other people are thinking about you because it's feedback.
Like when you make more personal content, there is some emotional labor in it.
Yeah.
And you want that emotional labor to pay off. as you want all labor to pay off. But yeah, it's one thing when you make the content, it's another thing.
But personal content does get views. And to be fair, it's easier to make if you have stories to tell or things to say. It's easier to make in that sense, right? You don't really need a whole lot of editing. You don't need scripts or anything like that. You can just speak from the heart, kind of like how I'm speaking right now. Like I know it's more I know I'm doing more reacting right now, but there's no editing in this video. There's no cuts. It's just me running off my brain, right? Which is kind of personal in a sense. I'm giving my personal thoughts on how this girl thinks she ruined her life and adding my own spin to things without any cuts, any edits, none of that nonsense. So show me some love because there's not a whole lot of content creators that can pull this stuff off without having to cut the video 20 times. Now, I'm still a newer creator, I'll admit that, but hey, at least I'm trying to make these videos with no cuts, no edits.
Thing when you are the content. But yeah, like,
And trying to add my 2 cents in rather than being one of those react guys that says damn or whatever. But tangent over. Let's get back to her video.
I had this with writing for a while. Like if I wasn't writing some like super SEO juiced up article on how to whatever, like, you know, something with a purpose, I just felt really vulnerable and exposed. But in reality, that's the kind of stuff I like to write. It's the same with making memes and art, and like I even watched my first ever TikTok, and I've never been someone who is like, I can just do a video any day and I will.
Wait, hold up. She watched her first ever TikTok in 2024, 2025? Damn, she's been living under a digital rock, or her willpower secretly beats all of ours. Because I don't know a single person here in the States that doesn't use TikTok. I mean, over 100 million people use TikTok in the States. So just to put that into perspective.
Not wear makeup and I will be.
But I feel bad for her because now she might be drawn into the TikTok rabbit hole that a lot of people are stuck in with the scrolling and the dopamine hits. I fall victim to it occasionally, right? I'm not going to say I'm perfect, but just saying.
Authentic and blah blah whatever. But like it was so much less overthought than anything I've made since then. And you can still tell that I'm not like a natural on camera. I don't really find this easy. I find it a lot easier if I don't look at it. But I think my phone has been upside down the whole time I've been filming this. But yeah, it was just way easier when I didn't overthink.
If it's been upside down the whole time, then good job editing it in post-production because it looks normal to me.
Everything so much. Like I am naturally an anxious person and an overthinker, so I'm not going to expect myself to not overthink things at all. But like it was just easier. And even though that TikTok has like way less views than some of my other TikToks, like that was real life stuff. That was non-targeted. That was just what was on my brain that day.
Yeah.
So in conclusion, the stuff I like may be boring and cringe to some, but so what? Making stuff I like would be a lot more fun to make. And maybe someone else will like it too. But I'll never know if I don't do it. So here I am, trying to unfuck my life and figure out what I want to do with it.
Okay.
Feel free to join me. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Drop a comment if you relate or have something to say. And I'll see you in the next video.
Yeah, let's unfuck our lives together. Now, let's look at some of the comments here because she has quite a few. Let's see. Scroll. This video's got, that's her saying that it's gotten far more reach. Good for you. Correct speed for this video is 0.75 because she talks very quickly. She is a D1 yapper. I will tell you that. And it's not necessarily a weakness, but remember, because if you can talk fast like that, there's some potential. I mean, you just gotta work on the nervousness because she does have a lot of anxiety just from the blinking and whatnot. Let's see, this isn't a ruined life. It's a very full life with lots going on. You've done so much in your life with such an interesting personality. Never thought I'd see 30. Now I'm 37. Still have no idea what I want to do in life either. Spent my 20s working just so I can get messy on the weekends. And that's a trap that a lot of people fall for, right? Is they use their weekends to get messy rather than to enlighten themselves, whether it's working on social media, on a side hustle, or even just going to the gym or whatever, right? Like a lot of people fall into that trap. And that's why we're kind of in that rabbit hole of almost living paycheck to paycheck. Let's see, documentary once about missing people, this guy in Dublin, blah, blah, blah. I'm 35 with no job or degree, just wasted life and constantly depressed, really trying to change. You're not alone. Wow. If you guys think you have it bad in life, just look at this commenter. 35 with no job or degree and wasted an entire life. Makes you wonder if this person has some very well-off parents that allows this 35-year-old to live the way they're living. Makes you wonder. But interesting stuff, interesting stuff. I will link her video in my description. And yeah, this was a good one. Now let's get to work and unfuck our lives together, as our friend Aish said.